Good afternoon. So before I go to my direct podcast, I kind of want to finish talking about Rasputin. I was supposed to be finishing talking about Rasputin, and one of the questions I have is, do he have any descendants? And y'all know, and when we were talking about him, basically it was said that that he had some children, but he was married, he had some kids, and then for some strange reason, like, oh god, I don't know how I just did that, but I did. But he had three children, even though his site is dedicated to the Romanovs. They do talk about Rasputin. So I found this article and I was trying to find the video. I can't find the video, but they did go on live TV and they did do a DNA test to prove that they were descendants of Rasputin. So I kind of want to talk about that. He still is a mystery to me. I'm one of those people where I'm gonna have to find a banned book somewhere because they ban books. Like there's books or something. I bet you I can find some books that are banned that will tell me a little bit more about Rasputin. Um, but right now we're being lazy trash. So I want to read this article. Well, I'm not reading
Romanov
it.
family, descendants of Grigory Rasputin. Romanov family, descendants of Grigory Rasputin. Viktor Prolubshikov of Pokrovsko, who claims to be Grigory Rasputin's illegitimate grandson, and Lawrence Solofiev of France, a recognized great-granddaughter of Rasputin. In Grigory Rasputin's native village of Pokrovsko, in Tyumen region, lives a scruffy-looking man with long white hair and beard, who practices the old Siberian tradition of healing by laying on of hands. His hometown and skills are not the only things Viktor Prolubshikov claims to have in common with the infamous Staryets, who was once referred to as our friend by the last Tsar of Russia, Nicholas II, and Tsaritsa Alexandra Fyodorovna. Rasputin, he claims, is none other than his grandfather, by a woman who once worked as the former's housekeeper, possibly Akalina Loptinskaya. It is known that Rasputin was not a model husband to Praskovia Dubrovina, his legal spouse, and was not beyond various dalliances on the side, any of which may have resulted in illegitimate offspring. Hence this claim is not completely unreasonable. Nevertheless, the final word belongs to science. Which is why the popular Russian talk show, Let Them Talk, decided to do just that. The show's producers organized an in-person meeting between Lawrence Solofiev, Rasputin's acknowledged great-granddaughter, through his daughter Matriona, Maria, and her alleged half-uncle, in their studio. Above, Lawrence Solofiev, Rasputin's great-granddaughter, traveled to Moscow from France to meet her alleged half-uncle. DNA samples were obtained from the two alleged relatives in advance, and the result was to be announced on the show. But of course the result was not going to be announced until the end of the show, so meanwhile, each participant is asked about their background. Lawrence shares her family tree and history. Her grandmother Matriona was one of Rasputin's two daughters, who settled in France after the revolution, and had two daughters of her own, Tatiana and Maria. Lawrence is one of Tatiana's three children. Lawrence even demonstrated her gold locket with the image of a double-headed eagle, the symbol of Imperial Russia. Viktor told stories of his life in Pokrovsko and of Rasputin's healing abilities. He even demonstrated how he uses his hands to perform these rituals. Later in the show, another acknowledged Rasputin descendant came into the studio. Her name is Valerie Eotherin, and she is a great-great-granddaughter of Rasputin, through her father, who is Lawrence's brother. Valerie Eotherin, great-great-granddaughter of Grigory Rasputin. Therin's great-granddaughter is Matriona Rasputina, daughter of the infamous Staryets. The DNA result was finally announced, but we still do not have our answer because it was inclusive. It showed a 22% chance that Solovyov and Prolubchikov are related and may share a common ancestor. According to the DNA expert, this result does not prove or refute the relation and needs additional, more thorough investigation.
Oh man, it was inconclusive.
Grigory Rasputin, world-famous Staryets and friend of Russia's last Tsar. More from my site. The Romanov family, Giant Steps game. Russia's last Romanovs, in their own words. The Romanovs, TV series review by a writer/historian/researcher. Romanov family remains update. Samples from Alexander III now in possession of scientists. Romanov family, rare footage.
Alright, we
Romanov
can
family,
stop.
new DNA tests on remains. Post views, 35,652. Posted it.
Alright. So they're saying there's a small chance. So 22%, they do have a relative in common. They don't know which one though. You gotta get more specific about who the relative is in common. And I'm looking at videos because I have like 8 videos. Like I have 8 thingies up right now. 8 tabs. Because I'm over here trying to find videos and stuff. And all these videos talk about really is him and him being a sex demon, basically an incubus. So in a lot of ways, he was demonized. But I question why people are demonized. I'm trying to figure out what does Rasputin have to do with descendants. Let me show you what they're showing me. Honey, I did not know. What does Rasputin have to do with the descendants? Disney descendants. I know they're doing this whole thing with the descendants, but I'm sitting over here and I'm looking at videos right now. I'm sharing the screen with you. What the hell? I looked up this and then all of a sudden I just started getting a whole bunch of Disney shit. There's a song about Rasputin. Yeah. That's interesting. Girl, this is very like frustrating for me because I can't find anything on this man. I mean, nobody giving me a different account on this man. You know, nobody. Let me see. Because when I saw that picture, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get some information if he has descendants. And first and foremost, it was 22% chance they do have an ancestor in common. Um, I'm looking at stuff about him right now. Everything about him they saying is bad. These people who claim that they are family to people and they try to look like them is so weird to me. Let's look at this. I'm gonna see this real quick.
Much about what they believe, how they handle fame, and even how they dress. But what about their descendants? There are some famous people who have descendants as interesting as themselves. So what about the cursed kids of famous Godfather Marlon Brando, the Red Army father Stalin, and his granddaughter? Oh, forgot about Hitler's son. Some live weird lives, others do crazy things, and even a few are involved in creepy goings-on. So today, let's find it out. Number 1. Danielle Riley Keough, Elvis Presley's granddaughter. Born on May 29, 1989, Danielle Riley Keough is known for being an Elvis Presley. That's right, an Elvis performed in a lot of films appeared in. It's not quite marrying Mad Max himself, but marrying one of his stuntmen is probably the next best thing, as they are officially maniacs. Number 2. Sean Lennon, John Lennon's son. It's pretty simple. When it comes to the most famous music, including the Black Lips, controversy surrounds Sean Lennon because while Julian Lennon was free, Therese Evans, Stalin's granddaughter. Joseph Stalin was a mass murderer, perhaps even killing more than any other single in nonviolence. Dressed like a punk rocker, Olga goes by the Americanized name of Therese Evans. We can't be the only ones to notice how close this sounds to the actor Chris Evans. You know, the man who ironically played Captain America.
That man is playing Galaga. Thought we wouldn't notice.
Curse. Marlon Brando is one of the most famous actors who ever lived.
So you telling me this man had 3 kids and y'all can't find his descendants? Now I become tired. Yeah. Give me a second. All right. I'm back. And like I said, it's hard for me to find information on the internet. It's like all the stuff that used to be on the internet 10 years ago is now on the internet. I don't know if they scrubbed any information off the internet about this guy. But it just seemed like everything everybody is saying is bad. You gotta have an objective. You can't prove to me that somebody bad. Because he's not responsible for millions of people dying. As you see, we're talking about Stalin, and that's bad. But I cannot find out one thing talking about this man. We can look all day, every day. We can't find nothing about this man. Nothing. So yeah, let's look at this. I want to look at this to see what this is.
I have a challenge for all of you. Go to
And these ads irk my nerves, girl. All of them.
I'm in Los Angeles, California today. Back in Los Angeles, I'm at a cemetery called Angeles Rosedale, and we're here to pay our respects and walk to the grave of a very interesting woman, and her father was probably fairly infamous, and that would be Maria Rasputin, her father being Grigory Rasputin. So let's walk to her grave and let's talk about the Rasputin story. Very spooky story. It is indeed. The cemetery here has a lot of old stones, interesting stones, and here we see a pyramid. Looks like it says Grigsby. And there are a few pyramids here. Now I will tell you that the pyramids were popular in the 1920s because, well, thereabouts, that's when Carter and, those guys found King Tut, and it just became the rage in America, well, all over the world. Everything Egyptian was fashionable. So you see it in architecture, you see it in graves, and, architecture and statuary at cemeteries. Well, we saw it in New Orleans at Metairie, and that one. But anyway, I want to give credit to one of our viewers and subscribers. I never would have known that the daughter of Rasputin was even here in the United States, let alone LA. And we got to give credit to Purple Clove.
I'm gonna say this. Everything is in LA. That's why I gotta go to LA. Everything is in LA. Okay, you'd be surprised what is in LA. I don't know why he's surprised, but I'm not surprised. It just seemed like everybody ends up in LA.
Great email. Once I saw that note, that suggestion, I was all over it. And for those of you that don't know about Rasputin, well, you're going to be shocked and probably mystified by what I tell you. And let's talk about him a little bit first. Now, many of you know Rasputin. He was a self-proclaimed holy man, kind of like a priest. He had befriended the family of Tsar Nicholas II in Russia, the last emperor of Russia. And I think it was about late 1906 that
I just realized something. And I know this is kind of weird to interrupt this video with this man showing the resting place of Rasputin's daughter, Maria Rasputin. But I just find it funny that you keep hearing the last. I was watching The Last Emperor of China. And I remember watching The Last Emperor of China, and it was crazy because he was on top of the world, and next thing you know, he had to beg other governments for titles. And they end up doing him in because he didn't really have a child. It was his wife had a child with somebody else because he stopped, having sex with his wife because she was high off opiates. And then she got pregnant, and so he went ahead and claimed that child that was his child, of Chinese descent. And they murdered his child. And it's crazy because it's like you hear these stories, and I feel like this all, like, the reason why this comes to me, the last of everything, like Rasputin introduced the last of the Romanovs and stuff like that. It's because there's another great empire that's about to experience their last this year. So it's crazy because it's like, it's more than one last emperor, but the last emperor of Russia was Tsar Nicholas II. And it's just so funny how things come full circle because it seemed like that's going to be the thing. Y'all notice it feels like the world has fallen apart. It does. If you feel like the world is changing, and it's changing fast, and it's scary. And it's scary for people who are at the top because understand tides are changing. I don't know if you noticed, but the poor is getting richer and the rich getting poorer. Okay? And it's not because the poor is robbing the rich. It's because tides are changing. So somebody may not have nothing now, does not mean they're not going to have it later. So you can't write people off for not having anything. And this is a prime example of what happened with the Romanovs, is that the people who were not in charge, the people who were the tail, became the head. This is why people talk about the book of Revelations. That's what the book of Revelations is about. You hear pastors say it all the time. You used to be the tail, you're going to be the head. So people are nervous and shaking in their boots who are at the top right now because they might be falling very hard. Because this story and the story of the last emperor all coincide together about the last of something. And it wasn't the last of monarchy because we still have monarchy. Queen Elizabeth's ass. I'm going to tell you this, though. If Queen Elizabeth die, I'm a low-key faint. Y'all know the shitstorm that's about to happen in England when that lady died. That's why I didn't take too lightly what Jason Lee did. Because the day she died, all hell is going to for real break loose. She, her family, and other European families of Europe represent the last of not only monarchy, but they represent the last of Queen Victoria's bloodline. Ask me what I think is going to happen with the monarchy. The same thing that happened with this whole thing with Rasputin back then, what was 100 years ago. The same thing's going to happen again. You at the top, but you ain't going to be at the top any longer. You ain't going to be at the top any longer. So you better enjoy them coins while you still have it. You better save up. Do what you got to do. If you notice, there's a lot of movies they show. It was crazy because when this whole pandemic happened, this whole pandemic went down, they were showing you movies like Outbreak and Contagion, and I saw World War Z recently. World War Z, 2012. 2012 has nothing to do with the freaking virus, but everybody feared that stuff happened in 2012. Like 2012 is scary. I remember seeing that movie and my stomach was doing backflips the whole time. I'm like, oh my God, this cannot happen in the year where I turned 22. It's not. This is not life. So, and the crazy part is, well, I was thinking about this also because I looked at the ad. So like, and you start to see more movies. You see movies like The Last Emperor. What's another movie people might have seen? You see a lot of movie about the last or something. You probably see a World War One. Keep in mind the funny part. I thought it was, and it would be the 100-year anniversary, 100 years plus anniversary of World War One. They represent the last of part of the European monarchy. Keep in mind that the Kingsman came out the beginning or the end of last year. And World War One represents the end of the partial empire, the end of the Russian Empire, the end of the Ottoman Empire. Okay? The reason they're not called Saxe-Coburg-Gothas for a reason. All right? Their name is Windsor now. But they're all are German descendants. They're all German. And Rasputin, who I would say is a spiritualist, I'm not quite sure. I can't get any opposing side about who he really was because people just paint him out to be bad. And I don't believe people are all bad. There is some good in some people. My thing is he didn't kill nobody. He didn't hurt nobody. And that still don't mean he ain't bad though, because he could have slowly been killing Nikolai. But Alexei. What Nikolai? Where did Nikolai come from? But he was kind of the transition of the end. Like when he died, not too long after he died, the Romanovs were assassinated. So this is big. And it's crazy because I'm noticing they did a series. They're doing a series on Showtime. I probably can find it on Hulu. They're doing a series about the first ladies. Now, anytime they start going back into American history and they start talking to you about the first ladies, that means something. It's not just a coincidence. It means something. Okay? Okay? It means something. Don't get it twisted. So this is going to be something that it's going to be a running theme. You're going to see a lot of movies talking about the end of a lot of things, including, stuff like that. So let's continue watching this video of his grave. I'm a little long-winded today. I don't know where my energy came from. I don't know how I got some energy because I don't have energy, but I'm gonna appreciate the fact that I have energy right now.
And acting not only as a priest, but as a healer. Now he got very close to the Tsarina, Alexandra, the wife, of course, of Nicholas. They had all these daughters. They had one son, Alexei, and he was a hemophiliac, very weak, skinny, very prone to, hemophiliac. Very prone to getting in trouble when you have an accident. You can die. The slightest cut. Well, he was very close to Alexandra, the Tsarina, because he is reputed to have cured the boy when he was having one of his bouts. He was maybe even near death. And he came off as the hero to the family. So he was running around in the social circles of Russian high society, the court, if you will. And it is in 1915, World War I, when Nicholas II left for St. Petersburg. He went to oversee the Russian armies fighting in World War I. fighting, and he left them alone, basically together. Now, there was no affair or anything going. It was just that, I mean, the deal was that they didn't, everybody was watching. They're like, who is this weirdo? Why is he here? Why is he influencing Nicholas in some of his decisions on our country, on our affairs? This is crazy. And they all wanted him. They wanted him dead. They wanted him out of there. So they were constantly plotting. Everybody hated him. And it was really, they were taking it on the chin. The Russian family, the reputation and all that. Everyone was so, you know, Nicholas goes away. He goes to the front. And then, you know, they're really, things are escalating. And of course, the whispers and the rumors are escalating. And next thing you know, the plot hatches where they want to kill him. We have these noblemen in the house, and they hatch this plan. Well, what do? They lure him over. And they get him in the basement nearby.
While looking at this video, I would just keep thinking to myself, like, I wouldn't want my corpse to be accessible. Like, I would have like a scavenger hunt. Like, you can't just sit up there and get inside my tomb. Like, it's just too easy for people to get to people's bodies these days. Like, it'd be a riddle. And if you get the riddle wrong, you get your arm cut off. Like freaking Indiana Jones. I'm sorry. Like, no ma'am, no Pam, no spam. Granted, I have no plans on being buried with jewelry neither. I mean, you know, y'all can have that shit.
From where he was living. And they tried to poison him with cyanide. They start with the cakes. At first he didn't want to eat the cakes, but then he's like, okay. I think he ate a few cakes. No effect. The cyanide has no effect. Then they're like, let's try the wine. 3 glasses of wine, cyanide, no effect. The power of Rasputin. And by the way, you couldn't even, it was really spooky to look in his eyes. You look at his pictures, they call it the Rasputin gaze. And he could just like captivate. He had said to have all kinds of powers. All kinds of powers. So that didn't work. So the one guy goes from the basement, he goes upstairs. Like, what do we do? And they're like, shoot him. So they go back down. He's like, hey, Rasputin.
He's talking about the Prince. Prince Yusupov. They call him Yusupov. I call him Yusupov. I'm not Russian, so don't expect me to know how to say anything that's Russian. Just don't, okay? I've come to conclusions that I am what I am. If I say it right, I say it right. But talking about Prince Yusupov, he was somebody from the royal family. So he's telling you a long story short about what happened, but it was a Russian royal.
Let me see your cross. Let's do a prayer. I want to see that up close. Pulls out the gun. And he shoots him in the chest. And they're like, okay, he's dead. Let's go to his house. You dress up as Rasputin. You know, it's like 2 a.m. Go to his house like he's going home. So, and make sure you're seen. So they do that. They come back. They come back and Rasputin is still alive. And he jumps up off the floor and he attacks them. And they're like wrestling and grappling. And you get the gun finally and they shoot him. I think they shot him in the head and they shot him a couple more times. The guy finally dies. And then I think he was still moving. They could not kill him. So what do? They tie him up, put him in a sheet, and they dump him in the freezing river under the ice. Well, he finally died. After that, here's another pyramid up here. Let's go check that out.
Them pyramids are flyer.
Yeah, so they finally got rid of him. Now, if you know the story of the end of the royal family, I mean, coinciding, they murder him. The word goes out. the war's going on. There's a revolution coming. The Bolsheviks, and at the end of the day, the Bolsheviks take over Lennon, and then they kill the family. You know, they murder the whole family, and that's a whole nother story. So everybody's wiped out, except the kids of Rasputin. Except for the kids. Let's take a look here. It says Chateau. So this is another Egyptian revival type of mausoleum. Take a quick look here. Well, it doesn't look like there. Now, to start with, of his 7 children, only 3 had survived to adulthood.
Okay, last chance. Enter Honey's giveaway now, and you could win this.
Girl.
There was Matrona, Barbara, his descendants. And now everybody would be coming after them next. By 1933, the Rasputin name was all but erased, with nearly all of his descendants dying under similar circumstances. Now, to start with, of his 7 children, only 3 had survived to adulthood. There was Matrona, Barbara, and Dmitri. When Rasputin was first holding sway in the royal court in St. Petersburg, they had lived with their mother, that is, until 1913. It is then when he brought them to be with him in St. Petersburg, and that's when he relocated them there permanently. He was trying to secure a future, especially for his 2 daughters, and he wanted them to be upstanding ladies. So he had enrolled them, both Matrona and Barbara, into prep schools, staffed by some of the best teachers there, and he began to gradually introduce them to his new circle of friends in the royal court. Matrona would later recall that Nicholas II's children, the Tsar, resembled something like delicate china dolls. She would later recall in her memoirs, the Tsar's children wanted to know everything about me. What gymnasium did I study at? Who does my hair? Who dresses me? Do you have any mechanical toys? Have you seen our yacht? What is your cow's name? And so on and so forth. The girls quickly befriended the Romanov children. Matrona soon changed her name, her lower class name, for a softer sounding name, Maria. That's when she got her name, Maria. Well, not long after they arrived, these anti-Rasputin sentiments began to grow more and more and more in St. Petersburg. And after their father was killed, well, they did the right thing. They all left town. But only Maria managed to leave the country. Not long before, she did marry a man named Boris Soloviev, an officer and loyal follower of Rasputin and, of course, of the royal family. And the first thing they would have to do to get out is they had to get new identification papers, and they did. And they left for Europe. Now, most could not head westward because of the war. And, you know, the trains, the Trans-Siberian, those often got stuck for months on end. So they took a different approach, and they left on a ferry boat. Well, they were successful, although it took 2 years. They did get to Europe by way of Japan, Singapore, and then the Suez Canal. And during that journey, Maria delivered her firstborn. Now, they first settled in Berlin, and then they finally made it to Paris 4 years later. This escape actually saved Maria's life, otherwise she would have been killed. And it was something that couldn't be said for her brother and sister. Sadly, they were all killed. What happened to them? Well, going back to soon after their father's murder, Rasputin, Varvara returned to be with her brother. And in 1922, no surprise, they were stripped of all their rights, and they were accused of being what they called then malignant elements. Well, things slowly started to get worse and worse for all of them, and in the 1930s, Dmitri, his mother, and his family were all arrested and sent to do labor in the north. And you know what that means. Well, they actually all died of dysentery. Meanwhile, Varvara simply disappeared, like thousands of others. One theory claims that she died of typhus in the 1920s, but we'll never know. Things weren't going so well either for Maria. Her husband Boris opened a restaurant, but the business was not successful. Most of the customers being poor Russian immigrants dined there, and they didn't pay their bills. They just dined on open tabs. And in 1924, he contacted the dreaded disease tuberculosis, and he died soon after that. By then, Maria had already 2 children, Marie and Tatiana. And having been left with nothing, well, first she worked as a housekeeper for rich families before taking a job as a dancer at the Empire Theater. She had taken ballet classes from the finishing school days, so that really helped. But they were really struggling along. But her life would soon change. In the 1930s, she was spotted by the director of what was called then Barnum, an American circus. And she got a job where she would perform in a cage with a lion. Well, she said, having fled the revolution as well as the wars, a lion cage doesn't scare me. I'm not afraid. So the infamous name Rasputin played a huge role in this. Of course, that's what they wanted. And they wanted to play up on that. Of course, the public showed great interest in seeing what was billed as Maria Rasputina, the daughter of the Mad Monk, made famous by his exploits in Russia. And they had billboards and advertising on posters. And Maria had the ability, actually, to tame wild animals with nothing but her inherited Rasputin gaze. So they said, the Rasputin gaze. And that really drew the people. So Maria toured almost all of Europe and then the United States with the show. Well, sadly, it all came to a crashing end in Miami. She was somehow savagely attacked by a polar bear. She survived. She went through lengthy surgeries, recovery. She had to stay in the hospital for a long time, and, well, that ended her career as an animal tamer. During World War II, Maria worked as a riveter, like Rosie the Riveter, at an American shipbuilding factory, so she did her part. And after World War II, she transitioned to weapons factories, where she worked and worked until she got very old. She had received her U.S. citizenship in 1945, the end of World War II, and she passed away in 1977. She was almost 80 years old. She does have surviving descendants that reside here in California. Now, we're at her grave here, and very interesting, I was here earlier at another time scouting, and I took a picture. And you can see that the ground over where she is buried is very interesting to shape, right over what is either her casket in the vault, or sometimes they just bury the casket. I don't know, but I've seen that when I was in St. Louis. I watched a burial. They just buried the casket. No one was even around. And anyway, something has failed down there, because the earth, all kind of in a line, just went down. And it looks like in some places it went down 12 inches. So you have to wonder if something, the vault or the casket itself caved in. And I'm going to tell you, we all don't realize this, but the earth that is laid over the burial weighs a lot. I think it's about 100, if you have compacted soil from my architecture days, that's about 100 pounds per cubic foot. Now, if you add that all up, there's about 3 to 5 tons of soil that's, if it's 4 feet or so on top of soil. So that is a lot. I mean, imagine a 3 or 5 ton boulder sitting on top of a vault. I mean, that's the same size as, well, a mid-sized sedan automobile. There's a lot of weight pushing down. So something's going on down there. And I don't know, it's kind of spooky. But anyway, Rest in peace. I'm glad to.
He said that's Smokey, right? I was thinking the same thing. I remember going to a family member's grave, and like there was like it wasn't, the grass hadn't grown all over it. It was like, I think, was it a year or like 2 years after she had passed? And I remember telling my mom, I was like, why does it look like it's like not the earth's not settled around it, you know? And she was like, I don't know.
You know that Maria was able to live her life in America and escape the horrors of communist Russia. Rest in peace, Maria.
That's very interesting. She did have daughters, so let me see what I can look up on them. I can't find nothing. There's no way in the world that her daughter was where. Okay, it said her mom was born in 1898. But I can't find anything on her daughter. So I'm gonna go straight to my podcast after this, and we're gonna talk about Vladimir Lenin. And no, this is not an attack on Russia. We're just gonna talk about this because they were in the movie Kingsman. Not the Golden Circle. The Golden Circle was like more present. But they were in the movie The Kingsman, and I want to talk about Vladimir Lenin. So with that being said, I'm gonna head right over to my podcast, and I'm gonna do a podcast, and I'm gonna post it, and I might come back on here. I'm not quite sure because there's a lot I want to talk about that's popping off right now. Oh, we hitting 333. Y'all know 3 is my number. So with that being said, thank you guys for coming to my live. I am outie. This was supposed to only be 30 minutes, by the way.